Drop the weapon. Put your hands where I can see them.
What weapon? This is my walking stick. I'm blind.
Don't play games with me. I know a club when I see one.
Sir, I have a white cane. I'm visually impaired.
Right. And I'm supposed to believe that.
At exactly 2:15 p.m. on a sunny Thursday in Phoenix, Arizona, Officer Derek Collins made a decision that would soon become the most humiliating moment of his 8-year career in law enforcement. Standing in the middle of a downtown street with his weapon drawn, Collins aimed at a man who appeared to be holding a stick, but the object in the man's hand was not a weapon at all. It was a white mobility cane, the type used by blind and visually impaired individuals to safely navigate streets, sidewalks, and buildings. The man holding it was Marcus Thompson, a 34-year-old software engineer who had been blind since the day he was born. On that afternoon, he was doing something completely ordinary, walking 3 blocks from his apartment to his favorite coffee shop. Marcus had absolutely no idea that this simple routine would suddenly turn into a viral incident that would cost a police officer his job and ignite a nationwide discussion about police training, disability awareness, and racial bias. Later, the body camera footage would reveal the entire encounter. Every second of the 8-minute confrontation was recorded. The video showed every incorrect assumption, every moment where the obvious truth was ignored, and every step that escalated a situation which could have been resolved with a small amount of awareness and basic human understanding. Before explaining exactly what happened during that encounter, it's important to understand who Marcus Thompson really was. Marcus was not just another software engineer living in Phoenix. He was a senior developer at a respected technology company. Outside of work, he stayed physically active, participated in long-distance running events, and regularly spoke about accessibility and disability rights. Despite having no sight at all, Marcus had spent more than 15 years navigating the city independently. He used a white cane to detect obstacles and relied on a guide dog named Bailey for additional assistance. On this particular afternoon, Bailey was not with him because the dog had been taken to a grooming appointment. Marcus had been born with a rare genetic condition called Leber congenital amaurosis. The disorder causes severe vision loss from birth. Because of this condition, Marcus had never experienced light, color, or faces. Yet he had built a full life, a successful career, an active social circle, and complete independence in the heart of downtown Phoenix. The white cane he carried was a standard mobility tool commonly used by blind individuals. It was bright white and marked with red reflective tape, a design that follows federal guidelines for mobility aids. The cane was lightweight aluminum, roughly 4 feet long, and could fold for convenient storage. Anyone with even minimal familiarity with accessibility equipment would immediately recognize it for what it was. Unfortunately, Officer Derek Collins did not. That afternoon, Collins was patrolling the downtown district as part of the department's community policing program. He was a white officer in his early 30s who had joined the Phoenix Police Department soon after graduating from college. While his record appeared acceptable on the surface, later reviews would show that his personnel file contained several complaints from residents in minority communities. None of those complaints had resulted in serious punishment, but they hinted at a pattern that had never been properly addressed. As Collins drove along Central Avenue, he noticed Marcus walking along the sidewalk heading north. According to Collins's later statement, what immediately caught his attention was the object Marcus was holding. From a distance, Collins believed it looked like some type of club or stick. Combined with the fact that Marcus was a black man walking in the area, Collins quickly formed the assumption that he might be dealing with a potentially dangerous situation. In reality, the location was not a high-crime area at all. The street was filled with office buildings, restaurants, and cafes that served the busy downtown population. But in Collins's mind, the situation already appeared suspicious. Without taking time to observe more carefully, Collins pulled his patrol vehicle to the curb and stepped out. Almost immediately, he drew his service weapon. He had not watched Marcus long enough to understand his behavior. He had not noticed the way Marcus carefully tapped the cane from side to side in a sweeping motion, a common technique used by blind pedestrians to detect obstacles in their path. Marcus's head was slightly tilted as he listened to the sounds of traffic and surrounding movement. He wore dark sunglasses and moved with slow, deliberate steps, relying on sound and touch to guide him. Each of these details clearly indicated that Marcus was visually impaired. But Collins failed to recognize any of them. From across the street, he raised his voice. "Drop the weapon and put your hands where I can see them." Marcus immediately froze in place. The sudden shout confused and frightened him. Since he could not see who was speaking, he had no idea what was happening. "What weapon?" Marcus responded cautiously. "This is my walking cane, I'm blind." Still holding his gun, Collins crossed the street toward him. "Don't try to play games with me," Collins said sharply. "I know what a club looks like." Marcus slowly lifted the white cane so it would be visible. "Sir, this is a white cane. It's used by people with visual impairments." Collins remained unconvinced. "And you expect me to believe that?" he replied. Every word of that exchange was captured clearly by the body camera attached to Collins's uniform. The recording would later allow millions of viewers to hear the disbelief and hostility in his voice. Marcus, however, tried to remain calm. Although he was frightened, he spoke carefully and respectfully. He understood that staying composed was often the safest approach when dealing with police officers, especially when they already seemed suspicious. "Officer," Marcus explained patiently, "this is a standard mobility cane used by blind individuals. The reflective tape helps drivers see it." Collins stepped closer, his weapon still pointed toward Marcus. "Turn around and place your hands on the wall." Marcus hesitated for a moment. "Officer, I need my cane to keep my balance," he explained. "Without it, I can't safely move." "I said turn around," Collins repeated. Marcus complied. Slowly, he turned toward the storefront behind him. One hand stayed on the cane to steady himself. That small action only increased Collins's suspicion. "Drop the weapon now," Collins shouted. "It's not a weapon," Marcus replied. "If I drop it, I won't be able to navigate safely." By this time, several pedestrians had stopped to watch. Phones appeared as people began recording the strange confrontation. In the body camera footage, at least 6 witnesses can be seen standing nearby, clearly confused by what they were observing. One woman could be heard saying quietly, "That's a blind person's cane." Another voice called out, "Officer, he's blind." Collins ignored them completely. In his mind, the situation still involved a possible threat, and the growing crowd only made him more defensive. "I'm going to search you for weapons," Collins announced. "You can search me," Marcus replied calmly, "but please let me keep my cane. I need it to walk." Collins began a quick pat-down search. He found exactly what one would expect from someone heading to a coffee shop: a wallet, a set of keys, and a smartphone equipped with accessibility software. While conducting the search, Collins also examined the cane more closely. The manufacturer's label was clearly printed on it. The reflective tape was visible. The material was lightweight and flexible, clearly designed as a mobility aid rather than any type of weapon. For most people, this would have been the moment to realize the mistake and apologize. But Collins still refused to admit he might be wrong. "This could still be used as a weapon," he insisted. Marcus sighed softly. "Officer, it's a mobility cane. It's made of lightweight aluminum and designed to fold. It's meant to help blind people detect obstacles." Meanwhile, the group of bystanders continued growing. Several people were now openly questioning what the officer was doing. "Leave him alone," one man shouted. "This is harassment," another woman said. Instead of calming the situation, the criticism only made Collins more determined to justify his actions. "Sir," Collins demanded, "what is your name and where are you going?" Marcus answered clearly. "My name is Marcus Thompson. I live at 1247 North Central Avenue, apartment 4B. I'm walking to Copper Star Coffee on 3rd Street. I go there every Thursday at about 2:30. The information sounded perfectly ordinary. In fact, verifying it would have been extremely simple. A quick radio call to the cafe could have confirmed Marcus's story within seconds. But Collins chose a different path. "Show me your identification," he ordered. Marcus slowly reached toward his back pocket. "I'm taking out my wallet," he said, carefully narrating his movements so the officer would not misunderstand. Inside the wallet was his driver's license, which clearly indicated his visual impairment through a special code used by Arizona licensing authorities. Marcus handed the card to Collins. For most officers, that would have been the end of the encounter. But for Collins, the situation was only becoming more complicated. Instead of accepting the evidence, he stared at the license suspiciously. "How do I know this is real?" he asked. Marcus remained patient. "Officer, you can check it in your system. My license number is B12 3,456,789. I've lived at the same address for 6 years. I work at Tech Corp downtown." Marcus even offered to provide his employer's contact information. But instead of reassuring Collins, the cooperation seemed to make him more suspicious. "Why are you giving me so much information?" Collins asked. "Most people don't cooperate this much." Marcus found himself in an impossible situation. His willingness to help was being interpreted as suspicious behavior. "Officer," he said quietly, "I'm trying to cooperate because I want this situation to end peacefully." Stood quietly as Officer Collins continued questioning him. The situation had already gone far beyond what should have been a simple misunderstanding, yet Marcus remained patient. His voice stayed calm, even though the confusion and tension around him were growing. "Officer," Marcus explained again, "I'm just walking to get coffee. I've lived here for years and I go to that cafe every week." Collins didn't respond immediately. Instead, he used his radio to run Marcus's identification through the police system. While waiting for the results, he continued to question him, as if he was still expecting to uncover something suspicious. "So you're telling me you walk to this coffee shop every week?" Collins asked. "Yes," Marcus replied. "Every Thursday around 2:30. I've been doing it for about 3 years. The staff there knows me. They even know my usual order." "What's your order?" Collins asked. "Large dark roast, no cream, no sugar." Collins paused for a moment, then asked another question. "And you live by yourself?" "Yes," Marcus answered. "I live independently. I use screen reading software for my work, navigation apps when I walk, and other accessibility tools. Being blind doesn't mean I can't live on my own." The radio on Collins's shoulder crackled. The results of the background check had come back. Marcus Thompson had no criminal record, no outstanding warrants, no history of traffic violations. His license was completely valid and his address matched the one he had given. Everything he said was accurate. At that moment, Collins had a clear choice. He could acknowledge the mistake, apologize for the misunderstanding, and allow Marcus to continue walking to the coffee shop. Instead, he chose another path. "I still do like how this situation looks," Collins said. Marcus tilted his head slightly, confused. "What exactly doesn't look right?" he asked. "I'm a blind man with a mobility cane walking to a coffee shop I visit every week. What part of that seems suspicious?" Collins struggled to explain. The real reason behind his suspicion wasn't something he could easily say out loud. His assumptions had already been formed the moment he saw Marcus from across the street. But rather than admitting that, Collins continued to search for a different explanation. "I think you're being evasive," he said. Marcus frowned slightly. "How am I being evasive?" he asked calmly. "I answered your questions, showed my identification, allowed you to search me, and even offered ways to verify my information. What else can I do?" While this conversation continued, more pedestrians had gathered nearby. The unusual scene, a police officer confronting a blind man over his walking cane, had drawn a crowd. Several people were recording with their phones. One person had already posted a short clip online, and the video was beginning to spread on social media. Someone else had contacted a local news station. The longer the situation continued, the more uncomfortable the witnesses became. Collins noticed the growing crowd and became irritated. "Everyone move along," he called out. "This is official police business." But no one moved. People were clearly disturbed by what they were seeing. To them, it looked like an officer was harassing a disabled man who had done nothing wrong. An elderly woman stepped forward slightly. "Officer," she said carefully, "I've seen this young man walking this route for years. He's blind. He's just going to the coffee shop like he always does." Collins immediately responded. "Ma'am, I need you to step back," he said firmly. The woman didn't raise her voice, but she continued speaking. "I'm just trying to help you understand that you might be making a mistake." Collins's frustration was becoming more visible. From his perspective, the situation was slipping out of his control. The presence of witnesses meant that every decision he made was now being observed and recorded. Meanwhile, Marcus remained standing near the storefront wall, holding his white cane. After a moment, he spoke again. "Officer, maybe there's a simple solution here." Collins looked at him. "What kind of solution?" "The coffee shop I'm going to is only 2 blocks away," Marcus said. "If we walk there together, the staff can confirm that I come there every week. They know me. That should clear everything up." It was a logical suggestion. The walk would take less than 5 minutes. The employees at the cafe could easily confirm Marcus's story, ending the situation quickly. But Collins rejected the idea almost immediately. "I'm not walking anywhere with you," he said. Marcus nodded slowly. "Then may I continue walking there myself?" he asked. "You've checked my identification, searched me, and verified my record. I haven't committed any crime." For a brief moment, Collins said nothing. Legally, there was no reason to keep Marcus there any longer. The computer check had confirmed he was telling the truth. The search had revealed nothing suspicious. Continuing to detain him would be difficult to justify. But releasing Marcus also meant admitting that the entire confrontation had been unnecessary. Finally, Collins spoke again. "I'm going to let you go with a warning," he said. Marcus paused. "A warning," he repeated. "About what?" Collins hesitated. There was no actual violation to warn him about. Marcus had simply been walking down the sidewalk with a mobility aid. Still, Collins tried to maintain authority. "Just be more careful about how you carry that stick," he said. The statement hung in the air for a moment. Marcus slowly processed what he had just heard. Then he responded with calm, controlled sarcasm. "Officer," he said politely, "I'll certainly try to be careful about how I carry the mobility aid that allows me to navigate safely as a blind person." He paused before continuing. "Is there a particular way you'd recommend that blind people hold their white canes so they don't appear threatening to law enforcement?" Several bystanders exchanged glances. The question made the absurdity of the situation obvious. Collins didn't answer. Marcus unfolded his cane again to make sure it was functioning properly. Then he turned carefully and began walking toward the direction of the coffee shop. The crowd parted slightly to give him space. Some people shook their heads. Others continued recording as he moved away. The entire encounter had lasted just over 8 minutes. 8 minutes that would soon be viewed by millions of people online. 8 minutes that would change the future of everyone involved. Collins returned to his patrol car. At that moment, he believed the situation was finished. He had no idea that the video recordings captured by witnesses, along with his own body camera footage, were already spreading rapidly across the internet. And within hours, the story would reach far beyond the streets of Phoenix. Marcus continued walking carefully toward the cafe, using the familiar sweeping motion of his white cane to guide each step. The encounter had left him shaken, but he kept moving along the same route he had walked many times before. A few minutes later, he arrived at Copper Star Coffee. He stepped inside at approximately 2:38 p.m., only a few minutes later than his usual arrival time. The staff immediately noticed that something seemed wrong. Jennifer, a barista who had served Marcus for years, spoke first. "Marcus, are you okay?" she asked with concern. Marcus gave a small breath before answering. "I just had an encounter with a police officer," he said. "He thought my white cane was some kind of weapon." Jennifer looked confused. "Your white cane?" she asked. "The one you use every day?" "Yes," Marcus replied, "that one." Other customers in the cafe overheard the conversation. Some of them had already witnessed the confrontation outside and quickly confirmed what had happened. Within minutes, several people inside the cafe were discussing the incident. Meanwhile, outside the coffee shop and along the street where the encounter had occurred, videos were already being uploaded online. Multiple bystanders had recorded the entire situation on their phones. The footage showed the officer pointing a weapon at a blind man and repeatedly refusing to believe that the white cane was a mobility aid. Within hours, the clips began circulating across social media platforms. Local reporters soon picked up the story. Civil rights organizations began reaching out for information. Disability advocacy groups started contacting Marcus as well. By the time Marcus returned home that evening, the situation had already gained significant attention. His phone began ringing constantly. Journalists wanted interviews. Advocacy organizations wanted to hear his side of the story. Lawyers specializing in civil rights issues offered to review the case. Marcus had never intended to become the focus of public attention, but the incident had clearly touched a nerve with many people. The following morning, the Phoenix Police Department began receiving calls from reporters and community members asking about the incident. Requests were submitted to obtain the official body camera footage from Officer Collins. Inside police headquarters, Police Chief Patricia Rodriguez gathered several members of her leadership team to review the video. The room remained silent as they watched the recording. Every moment of the encounter played clearly on the screen. Collins drawing his weapon, refusing to recognize the cane, ignoring witnesses, and continuing the confrontation even after verifying Marcus's identity. When the video ended, Chief Rodriguez looked around the room. "How did we hire someone who handles a situation like this?" she asked. An internal investigation was opened almost immediately. Officer Collins was placed on administrative leave, while the department's Internal Affairs Division reviewed the incident. Unlike many investigations, this one moved quickly. There was little uncertainty about what had happened because the body camera footage showed every detail. The recordings made it clear that Collins had escalated the situation without reasonable cause. He had drawn a firearm on a man who posed no threat. He had ignored clear signs that the object in Marcus's hand was a mobility cane. He had dismissed multiple bystanders who attempted to explain the situation. Perhaps most troubling of all, the video showed that Collins treated Marcus's cooperation as if it were suspicious behavior instead of recognizing it as an attempt to calmly resolve the situation. As the investigation continued, public reaction grew stronger. Disability rights organizations released statements criticizing the officer's actions. Advocacy groups pointed out that white mobility canes are widely recognized symbols used by visually impaired individuals around the world. The National Federation of the Blind described the incident as a disturbing example of how lack of awareness and bias can create dangerous situations. The American Foundation for the Blind also responded, offering to assist the police department with training programs focused on recognizing mobility aids and understanding how officers should interact with people who have disabilities. In Phoenix, local disability advocates organized demonstrations outside police headquarters. During the protests, participants carried white canes and wore blindfolds to highlight how obvious Marcus's disability should have been during the encounter. The internal investigation lasted about 6 weeks, which was considered relatively fast for a departmental review. When the findings were finally released, the conclusion was clear. Investigators determined that Officer Collins had shown poor judgment, demonstrated bias, and failed to properly evaluate the situation before using force. Shortly afterward, the department announced its decision. Officer Derek Collins was terminated from the Phoenix Police Department. The official letter cited multiple violations, including conduct unbecoming of an officer, failure to properly assess a civilian encounter, and discriminatory behavior. Collins initially considered appealing the decision through the police union. However, after reviewing the body camera footage and the investigation report, his union representative advised him that the case would be extremely difficult to defend. Eventually, Collins accepted the termination. At the same time, Marcus Thompson decided to pursue legal action. He filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against both Officer Collins and the Phoenix Police Department. The complaint argued that the incident involved discrimination based on disability, as well as violations of his civil rights. The legal team representing the city reviewed the evidence carefully. The body camera footage, along with multiple eyewitness recordings, made it difficult to dispute the sequence of events. After evaluating the situation, the city's attorneys recommended settling the case rather than risking a lengthy trial. 4 months after the original encounter, an agreement was reached. Marcus received a settlement of $180,000 from the city's insurance provider. In addition to the financial settlement, the police department committed to making changes to its training programs. New educational modules were introduced to help officers recognize mobility aids, such as white canes and guide dog harnesses. The training also included instruction on interacting respectfully with individuals who have disabilities and using de-escalation techniques during uncertain situations. Officer Collins never returned to law enforcement. Because his termination involved discriminatory conduct, other police departments were unwilling to hire him. Eventually, he found work in the private security industry, earning far less than he had during his time as a police officer. Meanwhile, the video of the encounter continued spreading online. Across multiple platforms, it was viewed more than 15 million times. News programs, documentaries, and academic studies examined the footage as an example of how unconscious bias can influence decision-making. Police training academies later began using the video in classroom discussions about judgment and awareness. The footage clearly demonstrated how Collins's assumptions had prevented him from recognizing what was directly in front of him. For Marcus, life gradually returned to its normal routine. He continued walking to Copper Star Coffee every Thursday afternoon. The staff greeted him warmly each time he arrived, and many regular customers recognized him from the widely shared story. Some simply offered words of encouragement. Others thanked him for the calm way he had handled the situation. Over time, Marcus also began speaking publicly about accessibility and police training. He attended conferences and shared his experience with law enforcement groups, explaining how officers could better understand the needs of people with disabilities. During interviews, Marcus often pointed out that situations like his were not as rare as many people might assume. Disabled individuals, particularly those who also belong to minority communities, sometimes face misunderstandings during interactions with authorities. His case gained attention largely because it had been recorded so clearly. 3 years after the incident, the same white cane still sits inside Marcus's apartment when it isn't being used. It remains the tool he depends on each day to move safely through the city. Inside the Phoenix Police Department, the body camera footage is now used in training sessions for new recruits. The video appears in a lesson designed to teach officers how personal assumptions can affect judgment during encounters with the public. Chief Rodriguez often refers to the incident when discussing the importance of improved training and awareness. She describes it as a clear example of how bias, even when unintentional, can cause officers to misinterpret ordinary situations as threats. The case also influenced departments beyond Phoenix. Police agencies in several cities began reviewing their own training procedures and adding additional instruction on disability awareness. What began as a simple misunderstanding on a sidewalk had eventually sparked a larger conversation about fairness, awareness, and accountability. Marcus Thompson had only been trying to get a cup of coffee that afternoon. Instead, he became part of a national discussion about how society treats people with disabilities and how law enforcement officers interpret the situations they encounter. The white cane that Officer Collins once mistook for a weapon still serves its original purpose. For Marcus, it remains a symbol of independence, a tool that allows him to move through the world with confidence and safety. But because of what happened that afternoon, it also represents something more. It stands as a reminder that awareness, training, and fairness are essential if communities hope to build a system where everyone can move freely without fear of misunderstanding or unnecessary confrontation. And the conversation that began that day continues even now.